When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and that your life is just to live inside this world, try not to bash into the walls too much. That's a very limited life, and life can be much broader once you discover that everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you, and that you can change it and influence it, and you can build your own things that other people can use. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again. I really like the quote by Steve Jobs because it so beautifully summarizes that life is not predefined. Life is an open opportunity, and we can do with it whatever we want. We can go and explore this beautiful world and do amazing things, live fulfilling lives, or we can lean back and expect other people to come and make our lives meaningful. We can expect some corporation to come and offer us a great career, but we will probably be disappointed because life doesn't work that way. You need to be proactive about creating your own opportunities in life, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, the entrepreneurial mindset and how I think we can change the world by creating a new generation of entrepreneurial-minded young people. I need a clicker. Thank you. Vino Koesler is a famous entrepreneur and venture capitalist in Silicon Valley. He says that every big problem is a big opportunity. And that's very true. If you start adopting this entrepreneurial approach to your own life, you will start identifying opportunities all around you where other people see problems. So you can start coming up with solutions for these problems instead of coming up with excuses on why not to do something about it. I think that entrepreneurship is an amazing thing. And the way I look at entrepreneurship is a typical entrepreneur would be a person who live his or her life in a way where they don't just accept the way things are. Entrepreneurs are those who dare to challenge the status quo, they dare to stand up against the crowd and try to solve some of these problems. And it can be take many different shapes and forms. Unfortunately, we have a very narrow scope of an entrepreneur today. Most people, when they think of an entrepreneur, they think about some guy in his early 20s living in a dirty dorm room where he eats too much pizza. And he's now trying to come up with some new online social photo sharing community. Or a new location-based restaurant search application for your smartphone. And sure, that might be valuable for you. To some extent, you might find your restaurant slightly faster. But is it real innovation? Is it really making impact in the world? I think entrepreneurship can be much more than that. I think it can be a way to live your life where you actually dare to approach those big problems. So when I think of an entrepreneur, I think of a guy called Dimitrios Burkas. Very recently, Dimitrios was an unemployed carpenter living in one of the poor regions in the Philippines. He didn't know what to do with his time, so he started looking around in his local community for problems that he could solve. And he identified a big problem for many of these people living in very poor living conditions. Most of these people live in very simple homes. It's sort of like a shack where they don't have any light. Imagine living your life in your home where you don't have any daylight come in because you don't have windows in your shack and you can't afford electricity. So it's basically pitch darkness all year round, even during the day. You can't find your stuff. You stumble over stuff on the floor because it's just lying around and you can't see it. So he said there must be a way to solve this big problem for a lot of people. So he came up with this idea on how to build a very smart light installation in these houses. He discovered that if he takes a 2-liter water bottle and he fills it up with filtered water and a little bit of bleach, then he makes a hole in this tin roof of the shack and he mounts it up on the top of the shack. The light will come in through the bottle and light up this entire home. He can light up a 35 square meter home with this very inexpensive solution. So a very kind of low cost, high impact solution. He has now created employment for himself and for other people in his community. And is basically lighting up the homes of thousands of people in the Philippines. And my Shelter Foundation has picked up this brilliant idea and is scaling it up to hundreds of thousands of people. This is a good example of how entrepreneurship can be about solving real problems in the world. So if we agree that entrepreneurship can be the key to making this world a better place, how can we teach it in a good way? I think, unfortunately, most students around the world today has never heard about entrepreneurship. Nobody has ever told them that you can go and change the world. So that's a very good first step. Secondly, we need to change the way we teach entrepreneurship, because today it's oftentimes taught in a university setting where we're sitting in an auditorium like this, listening to a professor who doesn't have any previous experience with entrepreneurship. And he's now trying to teach them how to write a 100-page long business plan, on how to make a detailed plan about how you're going to execute on this idea without ever having gone out and talked to potential customers, without really having understood the problem. He will also teach you how to make these very advanced financial projections of the next 5 years in some kind of weird Excel sheet. Another thing that is completely impossible to do for an early stage company, right? So it has to be done in a different way. It has to be experiential. So I kind of said that this is something that we need to do better. So I sat down with a couple of friends of mine in Denmark a couple of years ago and started creating an experience that can expose more young people to entrepreneurship and basically build their entrepreneurial confidence. So the first thing we do is to present them with a great social challenge. So we're kind of adding a layer of social responsibility as well. We'll present them with a big challenge and then ask them to come up with innovative solutions for these problems. An example here in the United States where we did a workshop on helping underserved communities. So we look at all these veterans returning from war and don't know how to apply their skills into modern society. How can we come up with brilliant solutions for that? Another example in Ireland, where we asked the high school students to look at a world or at a life in a nursing home. So we had senior citizens come in and talk about their stories, about their lives. We had a nurse from a nursing home come in and explain some of these daily problems that the senior citizens are facing. And the students came up with ideas on how to use technology to improve the lives of these people. Last example is recently I was in India, where we looked at how can we use technology to improve the lives of these rural farmers that don't know what type of crops to grow in their soil and don't know how to sell their crops when they're done harvesting. And it's amazing what these students can come up with over the course of 2 days. We call this the startup experience, and it's a 6-step, very structured process. We start presenting the challenge, then we teach them about some new technology trends, and then we take them through an ideation process, which is the core of the program, where they learn about systematic creativity and design thinking. This will be the first time many of these students are exposed to creativity and how to work together as a creative team. So it's quite an overwhelming experience. As you're probably aware of, when you work with creativity, you need to overcome your own personal barriers, and you need to allow yourself to come up with stupid and silly ideas. This can be a very foreign thought for many of the students, specifically in Asia and Africa and the Middle East, where they are not allowed to fail. Right? They grow up in the belief that they are not allowed to fail, because then they are a failure. So I do these exercises where I force them to fail. And they will make a lot of mistakes, and I tell them to celebrate those mistakes. And they look at me like, this guy is weird. We would never celebrate our mistakes. But I tell them to raise their arms above their heads and scream, "Yes, I made a mistake!" And then they look at me and say, this guy is definitely weird. But after a while, they start doing this. And we see this amazing transformation going on in these young people. They will start unleashing their own creative potential by opening up, by losing all that self-judgment, and start coming up with creative ideas. So we feel the energy in the room is completely changed. We see this creative flow going on in all the teams where they come up with ideas, they build on each other's ideas, and having this creative momentum going on. It's really an amazing experience. So finally, we come up with lots of ideas, we select the best one, we build a business model around this idea. And again, we don't just assume that we've understood the problem we're dealing with and that we've come up with a solution that will work. We go out in the field and try to verify all those assumptions that we've made. So these kids from India drove out 100 kilometers, that would be 60 miles, to this rural village to talk to these rural farmers and understand the world they're living in. Finally, they learn about pitching technique, visual communication, and prototyping, and they end up presenting this idea to a professional jury. So I've had the privilege to work with universities and NGOs, corporate nonprofits in different parts of the world. We tested it out in 7 countries with students from different cultural backgrounds, and it really resonates with these students. It's amazing what kind of transformation you can see even over the course of 2 days. So we're hoping to scale this up now across the globe. We have created this program. We are giving away all our materials for free to new trainers, to new facilitators who could be teachers or volunteers from an NGO. So we're training them on how to run these experiential entrepreneurship programs and hoping to reach 1 million students over the next 3 years. I want to close with a little story about how important it is to have your big dreams. When I was a young boy growing up in a wonderful family in Denmark, I always tended to rebel against this concept of writing a wish list. I don't know if you do that here, but in Denmark you write a wish list when you get close to Christmas or birthdays, and then you're hoping to get some of these things on the list. So I would always rebel against the concept of writing down all the things that you thought you could get. So I would write down at least 1 or 2 ridiculously big wishes. And my mom she tended to get slightly frustrated with me because she was concerned that on the day of my birthday, I would be so disappointed that I didn't get a trip to the moon, or I didn't get to ride a Ferrari or go down into a submarine or whatever other crazy idea I came up with that year. But it was not really because I was greedy and I just wanted these things. It was more like, I guess I thought that, what if one day some genie or Santa Claus walks by and randomly decides that Henrik has been a good boy this year. I'm going to fulfill his wildest dreams. And he gets a hold of this wish list with all these different things. And I had been too logical and rational this year, so I put down all the things that I thought I could get. So he fulfills all my dreams, but all I get is a new cab, a pair of tennis shoes, and a T-shirt. That would suck, right? I could have had this trip to the moon or whatever. So I guess I will leave you with that we need to allow ourselves to dream big and encourage the young people that we interact with to have big dreams, to set those ambitious goals and then work hard to achieve them. And then I hope we can go out and create a new generation of entrepreneurial-minded young people. Thank you very much.